The standard is, how are you going to do that?
Okay, so it sounds like you're just flipping around what I'm saying a little bit.
Well, because I think you have them backwards.
Well, I think you have them backwards.
I know. I know.
The fundamentals of business. Mental is a part of the
I
word.
never ask my clients to judge me on my wins. I ask them to judge me on my losers because I have so few.
There's money in the banana stand.
I'm a hard-working man.
You can't learn how to close. You better start thinking about another career.
Put that coffee down.
Welcome, everyone, to the Take It Offline podcast here on this Monday morning. That's Mike, and I'm Nate.
We are going to be talking work, life, and leadership, and all the things in between.
Mike and I have decades of leadership experience between the two of us, and while we haven't found all of the answers, we're at least going to ask the questions and have the conversations.
And our goal here is we're going to challenge the status quo and try to get you thinking differently and really want to challenge what you've always thought. See if there's a different way to look at it.
New perspectives are always a good thing, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely they are. And, Nate, we're coming up on episode 10.
We are.
And we're going to do something new.
We're going to do something a little new. It's going to be called Pinball. That's coming up next week, so you want to make sure that you tune in for that. Make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Also, we are going to be looking at communication. A couple episodes after that, we're going to be taking a deep dive on communication, how and why it matters. And Mike had a great question during our planning session. He asked if a good leader could be a bad communicator, if the two can coexist. So we're going to get into that a little bit too. Another great idea that Mike had was that we do a digital-free day in our own personal everyday lives.
Yeah, this has been on my bucket. This is, I don't do New Year's resolutions, but I do think through things that I want to do.
Yeah.
And within a particular time frame. And so this has been on my list to do. It's hard to walk away from, Nate.
So then I said, Mike, we should do that and then do an episode about it, about our experiences, what we've learned, and invite our listeners to come and be a part of it. So that's coming up. We'll have a date for that.
As long as they don't take their digital free day on a Monday. That's podcast day.
That's right.
Yeah.
It would have to be out
any other day. So,
Exactly.
Nate, people might not really get what the whole digital free day thing is. So why don't you share with them a little bit of what it is, and then we can get into what we're thinking of.
So the research shows that Americans spend an average of 5 hours and 16 minutes a day on their phones.
Is that personal, or does that include work too?
It's just screen time.
I did that before lunch today.
Well, it's even more if you have human-like conversations with the AI on your device, Mike.
I do like my AI. She may have surpassed you as my best friend.
Oh, man. The negative effects of all that scrolling can actually be reversed after about 2 weeks of a digital detox. So what happened is they studied folks who set their phones to phone calls and texts only. No internet.
I didn't even know you could do that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No internet, no internet browsers, social media, no mindless scrolling. And after just 2 weeks, their attention spans started to improve. They reported elevated mood and less anxiety. And that boost that they were experiencing neurologically was similar to reversing 10 years of age-related decline and attention deficit disorders that are happening because we're just constantly scrolling looking for that.
When I had this idea, I had no idea. I expected that it would be a fun challenge and it would be somewhat positive.
Yeah.
That's I don't know. 2 weeks is a long time.
It is. Well, one researcher found that even taking a partial digital detox, even for just a few days, had positive effects. And that's not even a full digital detox. That's just, again, going down to the phone and text messages on your phone.
Back to 1999.
Yeah, exactly. So, Mike, what sort of parameters, though, do you have in mind for our digital free day? Because I was talking it over with my girlfriend, and I said, so obviously it means no phones or computers in a truly digital free day. But what if we go to church and there's a screen that has the lyrics on it? Or if we go out to lunch and there's a TV screen playing over the bar? Do we have to start over? Does that impact our digital freeness?
TV at the bar, yes.
Okay.
because I think it's a distraction. If you're at the restaurant, you're there with an individual, and if there's a screen in the background, your attention can be pulled away. And the whole point of this is to not be distracted, to eliminate that digital distraction and be in the moment, be present. When you're talking at church and there's a screen and maybe there's a graphic, well, that's part of the engagement, so I think it's fine.
Okay.
But yeah, no TV. Here's a fun one. What about GPS?
Oh, I think absolutely not.
No GPS in your car?
No GPS, no.
All right. I may not get back.
I actually read a study not too long ago, a couple weeks ago, that said that people that use the GPS all the time, even to travel known routes, showed advanced aging in their brains. Their brains decline faster because you're not using those navigational skills to drive your vehicle.
So you heard it from Nate, everyone. You need to learn how to be Lewis and Clark.
What about this, Mike? What about digital payments? Can we use like tap to pay on a digital free day? What about a debit card or a credit card?
No, because you can, as you think about what you said, it's text and phone in that experiment. I'm going to give up text and phone.
Oh, right. You're going completely digital free.
Phone's going to go in a drawer and it won't come out for 24 hours.
Okay.
So I can't tap and pay.
What about the physical card though?
That's fine. That's not digital. I don't consider that digital.
Okay.
No, I think of digital.
We don't have to load up on cash before a digital free day.
No, I think of digital. Some places you can't even. It wouldn't even be worth.
That is true. That is true.
I'm thinking more from the standpoint of it's a screen, it's distracting, it beeps, it buzzes, it gets your attention. How do you get rid of those pieces?
Got it.
The things that are trying to grab you away from the moment.
That sounds fair. And hey, we invite you, dear listeners, to be a part of this. That's going to be coming up, episode number 13. It'll be airing on May 20th.
A month out. You got time to plan.
2026. Yeah, exactly.
Do you know your day?
I'm choosing between two. There's a Saturday and a Sunday in there that would both fit. I just I haven't put it in my digital calendar yet.
Is your special lady friend going to do it with you?
You know she doesn't like that phrase.
I know.
You're going to get me in trouble, Mike.
I'm going to get a text when she listens.
I don't know. I'll invite her to partake. Well, she'd have to, unless I'm just going to be sitting around all by myself on that day while she's off, texting her friends.
Well, it could be a day where she's off doing something else.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
She does like to garden.
Well, that's a good. There's a good thing to do on your digital free day.
You had a mini digital free moment earlier today.
I did, and actually, it felt weird. I left the house this morning. I had to go to Lowe's, pick something up. I was trying to get it done before work, so I was running down there early, and I realized I walked out of the house, leaving the phone on the charger.
Man,
and you get a little bit nervous, and it's like, do I have what I'm like? And then I realized I've got a wallet, I've got a little bit of cash, like I'm fine.
Right.
But in the moment, like your phone is such an essential thing. So yeah, it was a little disorienting to not have it. So that was 90 minutes. It'll be interesting to see what happens when I do this for 24 hours.
I love it.
I'm looking forward to it. I think I've picked my day.
Really? Okay.
I think it's going to be the 23rd of April.
23rd of April. What day of the week is that?
It's a Thursday.
Great day for digital freeness.
I'm off work, so that should help.
Yeah.
Yep. And so we'll see. We'll see.
I love it. I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be a fun experiment. It'll be fun to talk about it.
It will. It'll be interesting to see. I think it'll be interesting to see if any of those health benefits, even in moderation, if we see any of them come true.
Yeah.
All right. So look, we gave you guys a preview of some of the things to come. We hope you enjoy that. We've got, like we said, pinball, communication, and then on May 20th, you get to hear about Digital Free Day. And we'd love for you to do it somewhere between now and then, and write in ahead of time. Send us that email and let us know what was your experience with it? How did it go?
We'd love to hear it. And today we're talking all about standards and expectations.
Yeah. So Nate.
Yes.
Have you ever felt like you've been asked to be a mind reader?
Oh, most definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. You get a boss, tells you to do something, you do it, you feel good about it, you turn it in. Mm-hmm. And did you ever have that boss tell you, this is totally off the mark, this is not what I was looking for, you didn't do this right, you got to redo it. Yes. And then they start telling you what they want.
100%.
And you walk away from that probably like I do, feeling like, was I supposed to read your mind?
It extremely frustrating. Yes. Yeah. And I mentioned last week, I talked briefly about a period of time where I worked for a very difficult leader. And that same guy did that all the time, and it was extremely frustrating.
Yeah, I've had some of that in my past as well, and I'm not a fan of it. I think the difference in that situation is standards and expectations. And that's why I think I think there's a lot of people out there that feel this way. I think it leads to some of the things that we've talked about in the past.
Yep.
And this is why this topic is so valuable, is because especially if you're out there, and many of you are, you're leaders, you're helping to guide teams and individuals, understanding the difference between standards and expectations could help your team not only perform better, but feel better about the work that they're doing and avoid some of these things we've talked about, such as burnout.
Yeah, and elevate you as a leader as well. Because standards and expectations are often used interchangeably, but they're two very distinct elements of work relationships, personal relationships, even personal growth as well. Mike, do you have any working definitions of those two terms that you want to throw out to get us started?
I do, but let me throw this out to you first and tell me where does this one land for you?
All right,
Nate, I want you to be, you're a member of this team, and as a member of this team, I need you to be proactive.
Okay, proactive.
What is that? Standard or an expectation?
That sounds like an expectation, because what am I being proactive about?
Mm-hmm. A standard version of that might be like, hey, Nate, I need you to provide your risk assessment by the end of day Friday on the things that you saw coming up next week.
Okay,
so
yeah.
Something a little more specific, right?
Yes, yep.
Provide this to me by this date for this purpose.
That would be
a standard.
Standard, yep.
So I think an expectation is something that is passive, it is vague, versus a standard that is active, it's specific, it is process-oriented, whereas an expectation is more goal-oriented, right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like, go win the game. There's some famous coaches out there that say, look, the score will take care of itself if you do all the right things.
Right.
Very much a believer of that. I've coached many individuals in the past to say, stop looking at your numbers. Focus on how you're getting those numbers.
Yeah, the behaviors, they like to call it.
Pay attention to that stuff. And so the standard, I think, the best way I can think of it, it's the floor. It is the least, it is the bottom of what you will tolerate. You will not tolerate anything less than the standard.
Correct. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily low standards.
No. The standard is your lowest bar. And it just means you wouldn't walk past it if it wasn't being done and be okay with it. So a standard is something that you'll walk past, and at that point, that is the standard. You've accepted that, which is what makes it the standard.
Okay.
Even if the expectation is something else, you've allowed that. Well, that's your standard. And a good example of this is showing up late. Mm-hmm. If you say we're going to start at 1:00 and you show up and people start showing up at 1:05 and the meeting starts at 1:05 and you don't address that, well, then your standard is meetings can start late.
Exactly.
You've established that as a standard.
Right. Yeah, and if the standard is that meetings start at 1:00, but the expectation is that everyone's on, either logged on in the room, ready to go at 5 minutes before the meeting starts, that would be an expectation, and 1:00 would be the standard. Would you say that's accurate?
It would, yeah.
Because an expectation kind of shoots above the standards to a degree.
It could. I think you said that they get mixed up or they get interchanged.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And I think the problem is that I don't think people think about like, well, I have this expectation of this standard. Do you want everyone on the call 5 minutes early?
If it means everybody's going to be ready to go at 1, absolutely.
Okay, then your standard should be everyone should be on the call 5 minutes early. Okay. And I don't accept anything less than that. If an expectation is something that you're willing, if it happens or doesn't, you're okay with it.
Well, and that's why I would say that it would be an expectation.
See, I think standards are higher than expectations.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I would say expectations are higher than standards.
No, see, I disagree. I think standards are higher because standards are the things that you will not let pass. But expectations, if it happens, it happens.
Well, you just said that standards were the lowest thing that you would accept. So then wouldn't that place expectations higher?
No.
Why not?
So, all right. So if I tell you, Nate, I expect you to be responsive to all of your clients.
Okay.
What is responsive in your mind?
Proactive outreach, check-ins regularly, look for, identify needs before they occur.
What is regular?
Quarterly.
Okay. I think regular is weekly.
Okay.
See the problem? So I gave you an expectation, which is be responsive. In your mind, it meant one thing. If I had given you a standard, Nate, I expect you to respond to your clients every week. Or I expect you to engage your clients weekly because that's what I see as responsiveness. Or if I say, hey, Nate, we have an expectation when a client reaches out to you, you need to be responsive to them. Well, one person might think that's next day. Maybe I think it's an hour. So an expectation is very vague. So it can't be higher because it doesn't have any structure to it. A standard has structure to it. A standard says, I'm looking for you to do this in this way, in this particular manner, this particular way. And I'm not going to be okay if I tell you I need you to call your clients back 1 hour after they've reached out to you and you do it the next day. I'm not okay with that. I'm going to address it. I have a problem with it. If I tell you, Nate, I need you to call your clients back, you call them back the next day, there's nothing for me to hold you to. There's nothing for me to say about that or it becomes that mind reader situation where you're like, Nate, why didn't you call them back? Like, well, I did. I called them back this morning. Well, they called you yesterday at 4:00. Weren't you still in the office? Yeah. So why didn't you call them back?
So,
well, because you told me that I'm supposed to call them back, but you never told me by when. I gave you an expectation that had no meat to it. So I've left it completely up to interpretation.
Do you think that then you can have an expectation absent a standard?
Absolutely. And many people do, and I think this is half the problem.
So, and that's why I think that a standard is the baseline, and an expectation defines how you work within that baseline. So a standard, in my mind, defines the task or defines your professionalism. It defines your position descriptions are filled with standards that a person that fills a role needs to meet. And the expectations then shape how you interpret those standards, or interpret your leadership, or interpret your job description or your role. So the standard is that you reach out to your clients regularly, and then the expectation defines what regularly means.
No, I completely disagree. An expectation is vague, and a standard has specificity to it. What you just said is you gave the expectation. Expectation is I want you to reach out to your clients. The standard is how are you going to do that?
Okay, so it sounds like you're just flipping around what I'm saying a little bit.
Well, because I think you have them backwards.
Well, I think you have them backwards.
I know. I know. Well, we said at the beginning, we're going to try to challenge the thought processes here. Let me see if I've got an example for you here.
Okay.
Toyota.
Yes.
Toyota, an expectation that in a Toyota plan, and this is a real thing that they did, it could be do not let a mistake or a flaw go past you.
Okay.
Right? Okay, well, that's an expectation. Or don't make mistakes, actually, is a better version of it. Don't make mistakes, right? Well, what does that mean? Well, it means don't make a mistake. But what am I supposed to do about it? Or do I have to go get somebody? Or how does that work? What Toyota did instead is, if you see a mistake, you pull the cord, you stop the entire assembly line.
Okay.
That's a standard. We do not let a mistake go past us in this moment. It's not, it wasn't my mistake.
Right. Yep.
I didn't make a mistake. You said don't make mistakes. I didn't. The other guy did. That's the problem with an expectation. It's not clear. It's not defined. It's left up to total interpretation. And if you, I mentioned to you a quote when we started this, hire great people and get out of their way. Sounds good, but here's the problem with that. You hired great people and you just assume that they now know how to do things because why? Well, they're smart. They'll figure it out. Well, you know what they do? And I've seen this so many times. They just bring their old job to the new job.
Yes.
What if that doesn't fit the culture of this place? What if that doesn't, work here? Well, you just let them do whatever. You didn't give them a standard. You didn't tell them how the work is supposed to be or look or fit. You just said, do great work. So I did. I did great work down the street. I'll just bring that over here. And what you run into is, and I see this all the time today in the work I do, everybody's off doing their own thing in silos. There's very little collaboration. There's a bunch of silos. Everyone's doing great stuff. They've got these high expectations of what they're doing. But because there hasn't been a standard set of how does that work, it's standard is the lowest thing you're willing to accept. It doesn't mean it's a low thing.
No.
My standard, it might be, again with Toyota, no mistake passes you.
Yes, but if the standard can be that no mistake passes you, and then the expectation is that you take action on that standard. So that's why the expectation is higher than the standard.
Yeah, but see, that's not an expectation. That's a standard. The standard is you will take action. There is no exception. It's not I expect you to do it, and so okay, I expected you to do it, and you didn't do it.
So then you failed. You did not meet expectations.
Right, but the difference is it's a standard. Expectations get people allow expectations to come and go. And I think this is the problem that we have in a lot of the business world is that we've set some expectation and it's never followed up on. We talked about this. you asked me to bring this up, so
Okay.
I told you the story.
Yes.
You know where I'm going.
Yeah, I know exactly where we're going because we were talking about how younger people entering the workforce don't have the same tenacity or the same drive to accomplish tasks that their leaders might expect of them.
I had a boss. I've had this several different times. I had a boss that you'd get on a business review, and they would ask you for something specific. Hey, next time you're here, I want you to do, this. I want bring this or whatever. Or hey, do me a favor. After today's call, do XYZ for me. And I found out that I was the only one doing it. Really? Everybody else just didn't do it. And I'm like, well, what did the boss say when? Oh, nothing. They didn't. And then I noticed I'd send it. I never got a reply. So then I was like, well, let me just experiment. So I did it, didn't send it. And what happened? Nothing. Right? So I had an expectation that you're going to leave this meeting and do whatever. If I had a standard, there was no you're not going to do it or you're not going to turn it in or I'm not going to follow up on it because I have a standard that I am not willing to go below. And this is what Nick Saban said in his quote, that if you don't have the same standards and values, people don't get along.
Right.
Take aside the high achiever mediocre piece.
And that was a different emailing story than I thought you were going to tell. So I'll jump into the other one that I have in mind. That one still worked, but we were talking about a new person starts a job, and the boss says, "Hey, we've got a big call on Monday. Reach out to the clients and ask for these documents to get here by the call on Monday. Let's say it's next week." And the new person sends an email out. Boss follows up middle of the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, says, "Hey, did you get those documents from the client? We really need them for the call on Monday." And the new person would say, "Oh, well, I emailed them like you asked, but I haven't heard anything back." And then the boss would say, "Well, maybe follow up with a phone call or follow up with an email today because we really need those documents by the time the meeting starts." So the new person then would follow up, make a phone call, leave a message, maybe send another email, gets ignored. All of a sudden it's Friday. Big meeting's Monday morning. And the boss says, "Hey, where's this document?" And you say, "Oh, well, I did everything that you said, boss. I emailed them on Monday. I emailed and called them on Wednesday. I didn't hear anything." And the boss says, "Well, you know what? Never mind. I'll just reach out to them because we need this by Monday." So the boss takes care of it. A few weeks of this goes by and the boss eventually fires the new person because there was an expectation that they work independently and reach out independently and that there was some sort of tenacity independently to try to get those documents, to own the responsibility of getting the documents from that client for the meeting on Monday that was never communicated. The standard, which was the minimum, was, hey, reach out to the client.
See, I would disagree with you.
Which the person did, but the expectation was much higher than that. The expectation was do whatever it takes to get these documents here by Monday. And that was not ever communicated, and so therefore it was never met. The standard was met. The new person sent an email.
Let's say I disagree with you. The expectation was met. Call the client. I did. Standard, again, I go back to that definition, which is that standards are specific and they have ownership to them. Your job is to make sure that we have these documents by Monday morning. Elon Musk and Steve Jobs were very much about this. Steve Jobs called it his DRI. Okay. Next to every single thing, there was a person's name. This is the person that's responsible for this thing. And Elon Musk is famous for someone would come to him and say, well, we can't do that. And he would say, why? Well, HR said, or tech said, or someone said. And he was no, give me the name of the person that said we can't do this. I want to talk to that person.
Yeah.
Because expectations are collective.
I agree with that.
Don't let mistakes get past you. Okay. It's not individual. Well, someone's going to do it. Someone will take care of that. Someone will make sure that mistake doesn't make it out the door. Don't let a mistake go past you is individual, and that's why it becomes a standard. Because this cannot and will not be allowed. It is not allowable, and that was the problem. You gave an expectation. Call the client. I did. Call him again. I did. Reach this client and get these documents before Monday. That is specific. It takes all the vagueness out of it. You know exactly what's responsible. You are responsible. And the reason why the manager had to step in, I think this happens to a lot of managers. Why do you feel like you're doing your employee's job? Because you gave them an expectation. Like, I did it. I checked the box. I met the expectation.
So
I did that bare minimum thing versus we have a standard. You mentioned this with CarMax. Make the client happy. It was a standard. You guys all were given money and authority to do so.
Yes.
Because they gave you a standard that you're not going to let a little thing make a customer mad, or
Right.
you're not going to let a small thing lose us a customer.
Right.
So we have now put something in place to say, spend the money, get it done.
And that-
versus just saying, make the customer happy.
Yes. So I agree with you there. And this is why I still think that you have them a little bit flipped, because if the standard is the bare minimum, if that's the bare bones, is reach the client, get the documents here by Monday, no matter what, then I would say expectations are how you experience work, how you experience standards. Because look, research shows that expectations don't just predict outcomes, they shape how people experience those outcomes. So prior experiences shape expectations. Like you said, people come in with a standard and they go about trying to meet it the way that they did at their old firm, because they were operating under a different set of expectations to meet the same standard, because people react based on past patterns, not current reality. And so an expectation is that, no, you had the same standard at your old firm, make 100 client outreaches a week, but the expectation is that you do all of those calls before noon. That's where that shift is.
Yes, I disagree with you. I think we're going to disagree on this one.
Okay.
You're not going to shift my mind on this one. I think you continue to, the examples that you give around expectation, you're adding specificity to it, which expectations don't have. Another example of it is, hey, aim for the stars and hit the moon, right? We expect to, and then we settle. Well, your standard is that you're going to get to the moon, because that's what you're willing to accept.
Well, I would say the standard is that you still will. That's a bad example. Let me use this from my personal life. I am not a super fit person, but I am in shape, and I do enjoy working out. I do enjoy running, cycling here and there. I've competed in some triathlons. I have a marathon coming up in October. And my expectation for myself is that I'm going to wake up every morning and get in some sort of physical activity. Some days it might be a 5-mile run. Some days it might be a 3-mile run. Some days it might be a 2-mile walk. Some days it'll be some strength training at the gym. But the point is, I get up and I do something every morning. That's the expectation, because the standard that I've set for myself is that I want to be able to be active if and when I have grandkids one day. I want to be able to be active into my 60s and 70s and hopefully and prayerfully 80s. So the standard is that I'm going to take care of my body, and the way that I do that is through the expectation that I start every morning with some sort of physical activity.
Okay. Do you start every single morning with some type of activity?
Yes.
Okay. So that's not an expectation. It's a standard. It's what you do. Let me give you another example. We're going to bring it into the personal world for a second. Do you expect to pay your bills on time, or do you pay your bills on time?
Well, I pay them on time.
Okay, so you have a standard that I pay my bills on time. My bills are not late. That is your standard. You are not willing to go below that, right? If I say, well, I expect I'll pay my bills this month.
No, the standard.
You're saying it may happen or not.
Yes.
Standards are things that always happen consistently. You don't drop below them. You will not drop below them. An expectation is a thing I would like to do.
I would like to pay my bills early.
There you go. That's yeah, exactly. That's an expectation,
which is higher than the standard.
But in the work, but here's the thing. In this, it's not. I don't think it's about being higher or lower. It's the idea of, why does work get done or not get done? Why do you have people performing, not performing? Why do you have a good organization or a bad organization? If you have expectations at work, you may have a problem with the work that's getting done because you've given vagueness. You've allowed there to say, well, you could do it or you cannot do it. Versus if I have a standard, you don't continue on that same path, not meeting my standard, not meeting the organization's standard. So I guess I would rephrase it this. It's not about higher or lower. Standards are stronger. Expectations are weaker.
Okay. That we can agree on that. That's a good way to put it.
Okay. So Nate, we've gone through all of this stuff about what with the standards and expectations.
Yes.
So one of my favorite questions, I have a pastor that I love to listen to, and he says this all the time. Well, he's retired now, but he used to say it all the time. So what? So what? What does this matter?
Well, I think right before we got to our consensus on standards and expectations, another thing that we were agreeing on is that the breakdown was almost always in the way that the standards / expectations were communicated. And if they were communicated poorly, or if they were communicated with unconscious biases or with just assumptions, then they were never met. They were never met in a satisfactory way. And so that really falls to a leader, and a leader needing to be a good communicator, whether you're a leader by title or you're a leader by influence or you're an individual contributor that wants to, perform at your highest level. Communicating standards and expectations in whatever order that you place them, that's the so what on this whole conversation, I believe.
Yeah. I think where it fits in with, so what? Why does this matter? Why even worry about this? It ties into everything else that we talked about, that we've been talking about. If you provide unclear, inconsistent messages to your team, as you just described, you burn your people out. We talked about that.
Yeah.
That people feeling like their work didn't matter is what turns them cynical. Think about that. You spent a week doing some project. The boss gave you an expectation of, hey, Nate, go get this project done. He didn't offer any standards to how that was supposed to be done or what his bars were that he was looking for.
Right.
What he would accept when it came back. He gave you no standard for that. It frustrated you, and now you got to do that work again. That's the kind of stuff that leads people to burnout, which we talked heavily about.
Yeah.
We talked about work from home. I think people have made the expectation in the office, it's presence. Well, Nate's working. Well, why? Because Nate's in the office.
Nate's present. Yeah.
You don't know that. And we talked about that.
I can assure you that is not always the case.
But you've made the standard presence versus the standard should be productivity.
Which is one of the things that I really enjoyed during my time working in that organization, was that the boss didn't care when you were working. He just cared that the job got done.
Yeah.
And that was, in a lot of ways, very freeing.
Yeah.
Now, that also meant that the expectation or the standard, however you define it, was that you're always available. And that if you need to be reached on your day off, well, who's to say you didn't take Wednesday afternoon off because you were done? And that's where the lines got blurred a little bit.
Would he have put up with you not being available?
We eventually got to a place where I had to very clearly set a boundary, which I believe standards set boundaries. And that standard was that I do not work on my day off. I don't check email. If it's a call work-related, I'm not going to take it.
Okay.
And I think standards can be used to set those boundaries.
You guys set a new standard. If you would have gotten in trouble to the point of maybe losing your job or something else because you weren't available and he wanted that, then that was his standard. And you were going to always have to meet that standard. Yeah. But you guys came to an agreement to lower that standard to a more reasonable place because, for many reasons.
Yes.
The other piece, so if someone's in the office, I'm thinking, everyone's in the office, so they're communicating. Again, you have this expectation. That's not the case, right? Yeah. It's if you define what does communication amongst the team look like, well, now you have a standard for communication.
Yeah.
That we provide regular updates for one another within the first 30 minutes of arriving at work, right?
Yeah.
Things along those lines. And so part of that work from home piece is, why don't people trust? Why are leaders struggling to trust people to work from home? Well, it's because you didn't set standards. And if you had standards that, hey, it's about getting the work done, it's about the quality of the work, it's about what good communication looks like on the team. I've defined those things. I have a standard for them. And I enforce the standard.
I have that written down, Mike. Standards only matter if they're enforced.
Well, they're expectations if they're not.
Well, expectations only matter if they're clearly communicated.
And if they are, then they become standards. The other one is mediocre. We talked about mediocre recently.
Yep.
And I think
I cringe at that word.
This ties into that as well. I know. But mediocre, as we talk through it, which is I've decided for stable consistency and not chasing social check marks, I'm still doing good work. Well, consistency is probably one of the highest standards that you can have. Yeah. It shows repeatability in your work. It's great that you hit 100. I used to have a lesson I learned. First time I heard it, I'm like, what? It's probably 15 years ago. I had, there was a business review, and I'm sitting on this business review, and it was for a larger territory. And the the leader at the time is getting upset at the manager because they over exceeded their forecast. Okay. They said, we're going to come in at 105% of this number. They came in at 120% of the number, and the leader's giving them a hard time. And I'm like, someone help me understand what's going on
where
here.
This is going.
Right?
Yeah.
And his point was not being able to forecast accurately shows that you got lucky and you don't have a process and or standard to repeat this. So I have no faith that you can do this again because you said you were going to be here, but you ended up here. And what that shows me is a lack of control of your business. So beating it is just as bad as missing it.
Well, and we could take that another way too. Beating it is just as bad as missing it because now you've set a new bar for yourself. And maybe you just had a couple of really strong quarters, a couple of unusual surprises happen, good surprises. And by exceeding the expectation or the standard by that much, now it's like, well, you should be able to repeat that. And so I've seen people that will get frustrated that you set too many processes in motion, that it's like, oh, well, if we exceed the standard expectation by this much, then it'll look like we're really, devoted and really, on top of our work. No, you're just setting a new higher expectation for yourself.
And it's okay if you set a new standard. If your new standard is, hey, we're going to be at 120%, and that's what we're going to do every single month, every single quarter.
Then it needs to be repeatable.
Right. And that's the thing, right? And so, and sometimes high achievers fall into this trap.
Yes.
That you have gone out and killed yourself to hit some number that you can't ever do again, but then you start trying to do it again, and that feeds some of that burnout. So topics like work from home, burnout, mediocrity. I threw a quote out from, kind of the leader guru, the hire great people and get out of their way. We did our whole file or flush it on that.
Yep.
The standards expectations, they fit into so much of what we've already discussed. It's very applicable to many of the other subjects that we've touched on, and probably some of the ones, we're going to talk communication, and we thought that fit perfectly because, to your point,
right,
things not communicated well really start to mess up expectations and standards.
If you really want a recipe for disaster in a team or in an organization, have unspoken expectations and unenforced standards.
That's good.
You are going to have a dumpster fire on your hands.
That's good. I like it.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Nate, I think we've made the point on so what, why does this matter?
Yep.
So kind of what goes along with it. We started with, well, okay, what is this all about? So what? Why does it matter? And the way to kind of finish this, and if you guys have never heard this is a great way to sometimes go through things.
To frame a talk or a meeting or, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Sometimes taking notes. I'll take notes this way when I'm in a meeting, right? What are they talking about? Why does this even matter?
So what? Yep.
Sometimes I never get past that. And then that last piece, which is now what?
Now what? Exactly.
Now what? And so Nate, do you have a thought on now what? What do people do with this information?
Evaluate your standards. Evaluate your standards. Are they at a level where they need to be? Not even only for work, because yes, this is primarily a business-based podcast. We're talking about work, but we also talk about life and everything in between.
All of this fits into life.
And so evaluate your standards in your relationships. Evaluate your standards for yourself. That's actually the best place to start because that's the only thing that we can truly control or change immediately is ourselves. And so, yeah, that would be my big now what that I took from preparing for this podcast is evaluate my standards that I have in work and in life.
I like what you talk about and I think our digital free day fits into that.
Yeah.
We're thinking through. So if you have a standard that I'm going to give my undivided attention to someone, I want that to be my standard. Maybe it's just been an expectation and I've allowed it to happen or not, but I want it to be a standard. So to your point, you have an ability to control. So digital free day, we're doing it to kind of maybe set a new standard for ourselves and see how we can be less distracted in our everyday lives.
I think that'd be great.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on
what
that.
What do you got for us, Mike? And you're not what? Give me a piece.
Where I would follow it up, I think you leave the audience with a really great point to look at their standards. I would tell you examine what's not working and then determine, do you have a standard or do you just have an expectation?
Which, kind of going back to my workout analogy, if your expectation is that you're going to run a marathon in 9 months, then you better set some standards in place to make sure that you meet that expectation.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
according to your definitions of standards and expectations. If I understand that correctly, that's how you would say.
Absolutely. Yeah. I will not go a day without some form of movement.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Or maybe it's a week, whatever it is. I have some standard that this will happen, and I will find a way. I will make a way, but I will not allow it to not happen because it is a standard for me. And expectation is, okay, I'd like to run. I didn't. I heard a funny joke, Nate.
Yeah.
I have a goal that I'm going to run 4 miles every day.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And if I don't run 4 miles a day, I add it to tomorrow.
Okay.
So tomorrow I need to run for 4 months. And that's the problem with expectations. They just build up.
Especially when they're not communicated.
Absolutely. Well, next week, we'll be diving into how do you communicate those standards and expectations in a way that adds value.
In 2 weeks, because next week we have our pinball episode.
Oh, that's right.
Our first ever pinball episode. I'm excited about it.
So am I.
It's going to be something a little different, and we invite you to that. But this has been a great use of our time for today. So glad you joined us. Thank you, everybody, so much for listening. Mike, where can people interact with us on Take It Offline Podcast?
Email us at takeitofflinepodcast@gmail.com. Let us know, what do you think? What did you think of today's episode? What would you like to hear in future episodes? Join in on the conversation. This is truly meant to be your podcast, and we want to take it offline with you.
That's right. And if you found today's topic valuable, please share Take It Offline with your friends and colleagues, and let's keep the conversation going.
Until next Monday, take care of yourselves.
And take care of each other. The Take It Offline podcast is a production of Take It Offline Media. All views and opinions are ours alone, reasonably informed, and meant for personal enrichment and entertainment.
Are you not entertained?
Views expressed do not represent any particular organization or employer. Copyright 2026 by Take It Offline Media.